Today I have created, well, I built it yesterday actually, but I've made a new refrigeration system and it is very, very powerful. The compressor is a C-Corp SC21F and it's 3/4 of a horsepower. It's just running my hydrocarbon blend, which is just a mixture of R600A and R290, and it chills very quickly and it gives off a heck of a heat. I must be giving off over a kilowatt of heat anyway, because I heated up this bucket of water in like 10 minutes. I got up to 30 degrees, so yeah, it's powerful. What I'd like to do is maybe, instead of having this evaporator, or maybe I could just get another compressor, I could actually put a large sort of radiator like that, or a refrigerant to air heat exchanger on the evaporator, but use it as a heat pump to heat the Lay Z Spa that we've got. And this would give us an extra 1 kilowatt of heating power. Or I could get one of those Tecumseh compressors that are 1 horsepower, and that would give me even more. But I'd mean buying more copper tubing, and I'm having trouble sourcing a heat exchanger for the air that's large enough. So I'll show you it running just now. So because it was heating up the water so quickly, I've had to put this large radiator on it to try and take some of the heat out of that water. Currently the water is at 29 degrees Celsius. I was up above 30 earlier, and the water coming out the radiators is 27.8, so they are doing their job a little bit, at least. And the water in the bucket that I'm cooling, I don't know what temperature it was to start with, to be honest, but I was just sort of ambient. 3.1 degrees Celsius. Right, so we're switching on now. I've got my gauges there showing the pressures. Ignore the temperature scales on those gauges because they will be wrong, because the refrigerant I'm using is not R134A. So it's on. I did put a bit more gas in it today, but what I'm working on here is a capillary tube and needle valve hybrid system. But the capillary tube is a bit too restrictive because the temperature is going down to is too cold. I need to use less capillary tube, because I was thinking that I could maybe run the evaporator at like maybe like say -5 degrees Celsius, just using the capillary tube alone. And if I want to lower the temperature further, I'll just restrict this valve even more by turning it clockwise, and that would give me even lower temperatures. But this thing, my fingers are just sticking to it instantly because the temperature that it's going down to is way too low. And it's consuming 740 watts, so it's a fair bit of power that's going through it. Yeah, the discharge coming off it, that is absolutely roasting. I can't touch it at all, and the return line coming out is heat exchanger. It's pretty warm. I can keep my hand on it, so that's not too bad. But the heat coming off it is ridiculous. It's a lot. And it's so powerful, in fact, that it's already freezing up to the compressor. And this coil in here, the small one in the middle, is actually my refrigerated air dryer. So we'll have the air coming out the compressor, and it goes through the small coil in the middle, and then it gets chilled right down, and the moisture condenses out. Then it gets caught in a water trap. Then from the other side of that water trap, it goes into the tank, hopefully with far less moisture than it went in with. But I think there is still a little bit of moisture in this tank, maybe from when they were testing it from the factory, because I opened this up and it was strange because it was actually frosting up, and there was moisture inside the tank as well. So I'll put the whole thing under vacuum and maybe heat the tank up with a torch, and then that'll let all the moisture inside evaporate off. So I think it's getting to the point where this side of the compressor is freezing cold, so I think pretty much all the heat that's coming off it now is basically heat of its own power consumption, which is quite a lot. It's gone up to 750 watts now. So this air tank I actually always keep empty, just by using a shut off. That hose there goes to the tanks outside, and the reason I keep this empty all the time is because obviously it's not as well built as the tanks outside, and just leaving pressure in it all the time is a bit dangerous, because say there is moisture in it, over time it'll just weaken the tank and it may explode many years down the line. So these are my tanks that are outside, and they're designed to store oxygen at 3000 psi, and I'm only running them at about 115 psi, so about 5% of their design pressure, so they'll outlast me anyway. They'll still be holding air, probably. They'll be able to hold that pressure long after I'm gone. And it's just piped into the shed there. Well, it's certainly very warm in here. But yeah, I think a better use for this would actually be for heating the hot tub we've got, and that'd work quite well. The heater that we've got in it is currently what, I think it's about 2000 watts, and it took what, maybe about 8 hours at least to get up to just 30 degrees C, and takes more power to heat that thing up than it does to fully charge my car from dead. And even with these powerful fans running, that is really nice warm water in there. So that'd probably help to heat a spa quite well. I was thinking about using the dehumidifier to do it, but it probably only gives out maybe 300 to 400 watts of heat at the most, so it isn't really going to make a difference. But final arrangements with this will be I'll shorten up the capillary tube a bit more, or maybe even use a different size or remove it completely and just use this as a sole metering device. The only issue is it makes it a bit more difficult to fill up the system correctly with refrigerant because you're continually adjusting it. So that's why I'm opted for the sort of hybrid system. So because the water temperature has gone up quite a bit, the discharge pressure has gone up too. It's getting very high. So I'm going to just switch it off now. Yeah, it gave a bit of a kick there, but when this water is just at ambient temperature, the compressor does get roasting hot, and then it cools down once it starts getting cooling refrigerant coming back. Liquid refrigerant probably, which is not good, but I've never had that destroy a compressor, so it should be okay. And then the moisture condenser on this bucket just drips all over here, so I need to insulate the bucket. And I've got issues with the water eventually going smelly inside, so I may actually mix the water with bleach or just use a weak antifreeze solution. But I think for the water cooling system I actually need to get a car radiator and a really big fan and mount it outside the shed. I think that's really the only way to go with this, because it's just too much heat for this small radiator to cope with. So I hope you find that interesting, and thanks for watching.